Story 1. I always triple-check door locks. Comes with traveling alone. But this time I wasn't alone, and someone still got in. I'm a travel nurse, which means I move around a lot. New places, new patients, new temporary homes. You learn to stay alert. You learn to double-check things. Locks, windows, exits. I'm not paranoid, just cautious. It's part of the job. So when two of my friends suggested a weekend cabin getaway near Asheville, just us, some wine, good food, and mountain air, it sounded perfect. I was burned out from a long ICU rotation in Durham, and the idea of unwinding sounded like exactly what I needed. We booked a 3-bedroom Airbnb up in the hills. It was modern but tucked into the woods, just outside the Blue Ridge Parkway. You could see the stars at night, and the porch had one of those old rocking chairs that creaked with every gust of wind. The first night was easy. Laughter, grilled veggie skewers, too much rose. We played cards until midnight and passed out in our rooms without much thought. I do remember locking up before heading to bed. I remember checking the keypad and giving the doorknob a tug, like I always do. The second morning I noticed something odd. My toiletries bag had been unzipped, not wide open or anything, just slightly, like someone had peeked inside. I told myself I'd probably done it myself the night before. Maybe I was more tipsy than I thought. That afternoon, Jess asked if either of us had moved her phone charger. It had been on the kitchen counter. None of us had. She found it an hour later on the porch railing. "You probably left it there last night," Ree shrugged. Jess gave her a look. "I didn't even go outside last night. We let it go, laughed it off. Vacation brain, wine, late nights. But that night, I made sure to lock the front door again. Not just lock it, test it. I punched the code in myself, pulled the handle hard, even tapped the bolt with my knuckle to hear it was set. At 6:13 the next morning, I woke up to light in the hallway and a weird breeze coming through the house. I got up to check and found the back door wide open. Not just unlocked, open, like someone had pushed it out and forgotten to close it. That door didn't have a keypad, just a regular deadbolt. And I swear I locked it. Jess swore the same. So unless someone forgot or we were all losing it, that's when the shift happened. The fun vibe of the weekend started feeling thin, almost forced. We still ate breakfast and joked about ghost stories, but we were all watching the shadows a little more. Even asked if maybe the place was being used by someone else when it wasn't booked. I pulled up the Airbnb calendar on my phone and showed them it had been blocked off for a full week just for us. Still, I emailed the host. They were polite, said the cleaning crew was their only other point of access and that no one should have been by. No one. That evening we didn't drink. We locked both doors, double-checked all the windows, and sat on the porch for a while before heading in. At 10:23 p.m. we heard 3 short beeps. It came from the front door. You know that electronic tone when someone punches in a keypad? Yeah, that. Not an alert from inside the house. The actual sound of the buttons being pressed. I held my breath, turned off the living room light, and crept toward the door. The porch light was still on, but I didn't see anyone through the little window at the top. I checked the lock. It was still in place. But then the beeping happened again. 3 tones, followed by a short pause and a final chirp. That's the sound it makes when you enter the correct code. The lock didn't disengage. I think whoever it was must have panicked or gotten something wrong right at the end. Maybe they mistyped the final digit. Maybe they were just testing it. I backed away and whispered for the girls to grab their phones and stay in their rooms. I called 911, kept my voice low, and told them someone was trying to enter the cabin. By the time a sheriff's deputy arrived 20 minutes later, there was no one out there. No footprints on the porch. Just windblown leaves and that creaking rocking chair. He walked the perimeter, looked bored, and asked if we were sure we hadn't accidentally locked someone out. Maybe a neighbor, a friend? No, we didn't know anyone in Asheville. When I asked if the door log could be checked, he said that was up to the Airbnb host. He left after saying, "Keep the doors locked," like that was new advice. The next morning, I packed up early. So did Bree and Jess. We were supposed to stay another night, but none of us wanted to. We didn't even talk much in the car, just tense smiles and those weird little laughs people do when they're trying to act normal. I never got a follow-up from the host. Never heard if they looked into the keypad log or if anything was found. But when I went back to my apartment, I changed every password and lock I had. Airbnb, email, phone, everything. Whoever it was knew the code. That meant they either had inside access or had been watching long enough to learn it. My name's Logan. Was 22 when this happened. Summer of 2021, right after finals week. A buddy of mine, Sam, had this rental house just off campus in Denton. Nothing fancy, but it had a decent backyard, string lights, a fire pit, and most importantly, no nosy neighbors. Perfect for a summer kickback. That Saturday night, a group of us threw a casual barbecue. Nothing wild, just people from class. Some folks from the coffee shop I worked at, and a few randoms who tagged along with friends. You know how those things go. Music playing, cheap beer in the cooler, someone always burning the burgers, that kind of vibe. I think we were about 4 hours in, probably close to midnight, when she showed up. No one saw her arrive. She wasn't with anyone. She just sort of appeared. 1 second, it was the usual crowd. The next, there was this girl standing by the fire pit, drink in hand, smiling like she belonged there. Short brown hair, big dark eyes, plain jeans, and a white t-shirt. Kind of quiet. Friendly enough when spoken to, but didn't really initiate conversation. Everyone assumed she came with someone else. That's the unspoken rule at parties like that. You don't question the plus ones. She drifted from group to group, always smiling, always nodding like she was in on the joke. I remember thinking she had this stillness about her. Not stiff exactly, just measured, like she was trying not to stand out. A few hours went by. People started heading inside to charge their phones, use the bathroom, grab more drinks. I went in to throw away some paper plates and noticed her standing at the end of the hallway by the bedrooms. "Hey," I said, kind of casual, "bathroom's back there, but the bedrooms are off limits." She didn't answer right away. Just looked at me, smiled faintly and said, "I was looking for my friend, thought she came in here." I nodded, even though it didn't really make sense. "Cool, just yeah, not much to see down that way." She gave a tiny nod and walked past me into the kitchen. I didn't think much of it, not until about 15 minutes later, when I saw Chelsea coming down the stairs looking pissed. "Someone's been in your room," she told Sam. He looked confused. "Like recently?" "Yeah, drawers open. I had cash in there. It's gone." Now people were paying attention. A few of us started asking around. Nobody had seen anyone upstairs. Nobody had seen anyone suspicious, except me. I mentioned the girl, quiet, short hair, white tee. No one could figure out who she came with. And suddenly she wasn't outside anymore. Sam checked the front door. Unlocked. We had no idea how long she'd been gone. We called the cops mostly to get a report on file. They took statements, checked for fingerprints, didn't find much. The weirdest part came the next morning. Sam's next-door neighbor, Mr. Garza, stopped by. He's retired, always kind of keeps an eye on the block. Told us someone broke into his place that night. Nothing major taken, just some small electronics and jewelry. He showed us the footage from his ring cam. There she was. Same girl, same clothes, walking up to his door just after 3 a.m., looking around, slipping inside like she had a key. Except the door was locked, and the cam never caught her coming out. The police said it might be a local thief who blends in at parties, targets college neighborhoods, but it didn't sit right with me. She didn't move like someone casing a place. She moved like someone who already knew the layout, who already knew us. I remember people laughing about it the next day. Like, "Whoa, crazy night, huh?" Denton always got weirdos. But I kept picturing her standing in that hallway, watching like we'd invited her without knowing it, like she belonged there more than we did. I teach 7th grade English, so trust me when I say my summer breaks are sacred. That August, a few of us decided to rent a cabin up in the Poconos for the weekend. Teachers, nurses, one software guy, just a mix of friends looking to unplug. We were all burned out from a rough school year, and honestly, just chilling by a fire with a drink sounded like heaven. No emails, no alarms. No one yelling about Chromebooks. The cabin was gorgeous, tucked back into the trees with a wraparound porch and giant windows that made it feel like you were floating in the woods. There was no cell service, which was half the point. You had to drive 10 minutes back toward the highway just to get a signal. The first night was all laughter and wine and terrible card games. We stayed up until almost 2, telling stories and arguing over who snored the loudest. The next morning, I was making coffee when Carrie came in from the back porch looking kind of weird. "You saw someone last night, right?" she asked. I blinked her. "Saw someone where?" She pointed through the trees behind the cabin. "Out there." I woke up around 4 and looked out the bedroom window. Thought I saw someone standing in the woods. The others trickled in as she was telling me, and we all brushed it off. Probably just a shadow or a tree that caught her eye half asleep. Carrie didn't push it, but I noticed she didn't sit with her back to the window the rest of the morning. That afternoon, we went into town for snacks and beer, and when we got back, the front door was locked. But one of the back windows, a small one in the kitchen, was open about 2 inches. None of us remembered opening it. I closed it, didn't say anything. It was probably nothing. Saturday night, things got weird again. We were sitting around the fire pit just after midnight, and I kept catching movement in the trees. You know how your eyes play tricks on you when it's dark and the firelight flickers. But this felt different. It was like someone ducking just out of view. Anyone else feel like we're being watched? Joel laughed. He was the software guy. Smart. Loud, always making jokes. We all kind of laughed it off too. Told ghost stories to make it feel like a game. But when we turned in for the night, I closed every curtain in the bedroom. I couldn't explain it, but something felt off. The next morning was beautiful. Warm sunlight, birds everywhere, the smell of pine and coffee and sunscreen. We were planning to go kayaking, but Carrie came back from a morning walk looking pale. "Come with me," she said, grabbing my wrist. About 50 feet into the woods, hidden in the hollow of an old tree trunk, was a phone. Not hers, not mine, none of ours. It was propped inside the tree with a twig like a makeshift stand. The screen was black, but when I picked it up, it buzzed. Still charged, no passcode, the Photos app was open, and what we saw made my knees go weak. Hundreds of videos, us, sitting by the fire, floating in the lake. Carrying groceries into the cabin, sleeping. Some of them were taken from above, like from the second-story window. Others were filmed through cracks in the curtains. One of me brushing my hair in the bathroom. Another of Joel scratching his stomach in his boxers while making breakfast. There were even clips of us talking about work, about dumb things like politics and what cereal brand is best. Private moments, mundane moments. But someone had been there. Listening, watching, recording. We all stood in the living room, phone in the center of the coffee table, like it might explode. No one said anything for a long time. When we finally checked the rest of the property, we didn't find anything else. No gear, no signs of someone camping nearby. We called the rental owner, who drove up that afternoon with her brother. She was genuinely shocked and promised to file a report. The cops took the phone. We gave statements. That night, none of us slept. The final clip we remembered seeing was time-stamped 11:03 p.m. the night before we found it. It was filmed from just outside the bathroom window. You could see me brushing my teeth, humming a little tune I didn't even remember singing. And right at the end of the clip, I looked straight at the camera. Right through the window. Right at whoever was holding that phone. I didn't know. I didn't feel it. But somehow they were close enough to see the color of my eyes. I always take the same route home. I live in a residential neighborhood in Burbank. Not the fancy part with studios and tourists, but the quieter section near Glen Oaks. You know, the kind with palm trees, cracked sidewalks, and two-bedroom houses that all look like they were built in the same year. I just finished my shift at the summer camp I work at. 7 hours of sunscreen, yelling over kids and crafting glittery chaos. My legs were tired, and I was sweaty and hungry, but the sun was finally going down and there was a light breeze. It felt calm. The bus dropped me off around 740, like usual. There were still a few kids playing basketball at the park across the street. Birds chirped, sprinklers hissed, and I popped in one earbud as I crossed the street and started my 10-minute walk home. She caught my eye right then. At first, I thought she was just another teenager. Black Converse, faded backpack, long dark hair. She couldn't have been more than a year older, or younger than me. She was maybe a block behind, walking the same direction. I didn't overthink it. People live in neighborhoods. People walk. But I'm cautious by nature. My mom drilled it into me from an early age. Trust your gut. Cross the street if something feels weird. Never keep both earbuds in. So when I reached the corner near that old lavender house with the chipped porch, I slowed down. I pretended to tie my shoe and look behind me. She had slowed too. Still walking. Still watching the sidewalk. Okay, maybe coincidence. I turned left down Chestnut, a quieter street. Fewer streetlights. If she turned too, that would be my sign. And she did. Same pace. Same distance. I kept walking a little faster now. One earbud out. I told myself not to be dramatic. Maybe she was just going home. Maybe she lived on this street. Maybe then she sped up. I didn't hear her. Just the crunch of sneakers speeding up behind me. Not running, just faster. Like she was closing the gap. So I turned. Not dramatically, just enough to make it obvious that I saw her. She smiled. I didn't know what to do. I half smiled back out of politeness and kept walking. That's what you're taught to do, right? Don't overreact. Be polite. Be cautious, but not rude. At the corner of Chestnut and Alcott, I stopped. That's where the little community library box is. The one with peeling paint and a bunch of old Stephen King paperbacks inside. I pretended to browse, letting her pass me if she was going to. But she didn't. She stopped too, a few feet away, still smiling. Now I was sure. I took a breath and said, "Hey, are you okay? Do you need something?" She tilted her head like she didn't understand the question. Then she said, "I've seen your bedroom window." I stared at her. She added almost sing-song, "You keep the fan on." My mouth went dry. She was right. I live in a one-story house. My window faces the street, but it's shaded by bushes and trees. You can't see it unless you stop and look. And even then, you'd have to know what to look for. I stepped back. She kept standing there. Her smile didn't change. It wasn't menacing. It wasn't friendly either. It was fixed. "What do you want?" I asked. She didn't answer, just turned around and walked away. No rush, no looking back. She didn't run. She didn't laugh. She just disappeared around the corner, like she'd finished what she came for. I didn't wait. I ran the rest of the way home, skipping my usual turns and doubling back once to make sure she wasn't following again. When I got inside, I locked the door and went straight to my window. The fan was still humming, pointed toward my bed. And yeah, the curtain had been pulled halfway back. Anyone standing across the street at night could have seen in, could have seen me sleeping. I told my mom everything. She didn't hesitate, called the non-emergency police line, and filed a report. An officer came by that night. I gave a description. About my age, maybe 5, 6, long dark hair, jeans, no tattoos or markings I noticed. But the weirdest part, they couldn't find her. Nobody matching that description lived nearby. No other reports. No one had seen her hanging around. I showed the officer where I thought she'd been watching me from, and he just kind of nodded, took notes, and said, "It's probably just someone messing around." But here's what messes with me. A few days later, I found something in the bushes outside my window. It was a bracelet, one of those cheap plastic kinds you get from vending machines. Purple beads. Too small for an adult. I hadn't seen it before. My mom hadn't either. I still don't know if it was hers, or if she left it on purpose. But after that night, I kept the window shut. Every single night. Fan or no fan. I don't even like walking home from the bus stop anymore. And here's the part one never told anyone. Not even my mom. 2 weeks after that, I was scrolling through Instagram. You know how the people you may know feature sometimes shows you mutuals? She popped up. No name, just a blank account. No followers, no posts. But the profile picture was unmistakable. It was her. Same smile, same eyes, same expression. And in the background of that profile picture, my street. I don't know if she ever came back, but I haven't slept with the window open since. There was a blackout, so I figured my eyes were playing tricks. But that shape didn't go away. We don't get a lot of intense storms in Albany, not like down south. But that night was different. It started around 7. Big rolling thunder and wind that kicked up like it had something to prove. I had the windows open to let in some breeze. And then everything went dead. The lights, my monitors, the fridge, the ceiling fan, all gone. I grabbed a flashlight from the junk drawer and lit a couple candles. No big deal. I actually kind of like blackouts. At least the first hour or so. It forces you to slow down. I opened a beer, cracked the back door, and stepped onto the covered porch. It was warm and wet out, like the air couldn't decide whether to rain or just sit on your skin. My backyard isn't huge, maybe 40 feet across, fenced on 3 sides with a tall hedge that covers the rear. I have a grill, a patio table, and a motion sensor floodlight that was obviously not working. But then I saw this shape. I thought it was just a dark patch in the bushes, nothing special. But then lightning flashed, and it lit up the yard for a split second. There was something, standing just in front of the hedge. A kid. I blinked hard. I don't have kids, and none of my neighbors have little ones that would be outside this late, especially in a storm. I stepped off the porch and took a few steps into the yard. My flashlight beam wasn't powerful enough to reach, and I didn't want to shout. It was one of those moments where you just wait for your brain to make sense of what you're seeing. Lightning lit up the yard again, still there, standing. Facing the house, not moving. No umbrella, not reacting to the rain. I called out, "Hey, you okay? You lost or something?" Nothing, not even a twitch. I stepped back inside, locked the door, and grabbed my phone to call non-emergency police. No service. Of course. Cell towers must have gone out with the storm. I stood at the kitchen window watching. Still there. My dog, Harley, a rescue mutt who barks at squirrels and pizza delivery guys like his life depends on it, was crouched behind the kitchen table, just staring at the back door with his ears flat. I'd never seen him like that before. I pulled down one of the candles and sat in the living room. Every 10 minutes, I'd peek out, still there, still standing. I thought maybe it was a scarecrow, or something someone dragged out as a prank. But who would do that in a storm? And how would they get into my yard? The side gates were chained. I know that for a fact because I'd locked them earlier in the day while mowing. At some point, I must have nodded off. I woke up on the couch around 3 a.m. The power was still out, but the wind had died down. I rushed to the window. Gone. Just like that. The yard was empty. The hedge was still. My grill cover had blown halfway across the lawn, and the patio chairs had tipped over. But the spot where the kid had been standing was empty. Harley still refused to go out. The power came back around 9 a.m. I made coffee, gave Harley his food, and tried to forget about it, but I couldn't shake the feeling. So I pulled up the security camera footage from the night before. I have 3 cameras, one facing the front porch, one on the driveway, and one pointed right at the backyard. I scrubbed through the footage. Nothing. Just wind and rain. The trees thrashing, patio chairs falling. No sign of anyone standing in the yard. I watched again. Still nothing. No glitch. No shadow. No distortion. Just nothing. I went outside to check the area. The grass was soaked, but there were no footprints. No signs of anyone standing there. And yet, I know what I saw. Harley knew too. He still wouldn't go near the hedge. He circled the yard wide whenever I let him out, giving that back corner a wide berth. 2 weeks later, I finally brought it up to my neighbor Mike while we were grilling. Hey, did you lose power during that storm? Yeah, whole block went dark. Creepy night, huh? You see anything weird out back? Like anyone in your yard or mine? He shook his head. Nah, didn't even look out there. Why? Someone mess with your place? I kind of froze for a second. Just watched Harley sniffing around the garden, then veering left again. Same as always. Avoiding that corner like it bit him once. Just thought I saw something, that's all. Probably nothing. Mike nodded like he got it, but I could tell he thought I was imagining things. Maybe I was. Maybe not. Even now, with the lights back on, I can't walk to that part of the yard at night. Once met this dude named Matt when I was out with friends at a bar one summer. I was out with a big group and Matt and I made friends at the bar, vibing over the Cubs game that was on. My group kind of dispersed away from me as I spoke with Matt, so it wasn't like Matt really spoke to any of my friends. We ended up exchanging Instagrams, and he had a decent amount of followers on Instagram, and his pictures made him seem like a normal 20-something-year-old dude who likes to go out, travel, and stay active. After we exchanged info, we went to go find my group. Honestly, whenever you bro out with another guy while you're at a bar, the odds of ever actually contacting each other again after exchanging info are slim to none. You always act like you'll hit them up, but come the next day when you're sober, you just have no interest. Well, the next day, which was a Saturday, I went out to another bar/restaurant with my friends. This was an outdoor spot on the water. It was for my friend Tyler's birthday. I put something on my Instagram story as we all sang at the bar for him. After about an hour, we were done with dinner and just hanging around the outside section of the bar. When I got a tap on my shoulder, I turned around and it was Matt. He dabbed me up with a smile and said this was his favorite Saturday night spot. I introduced Matt more officially to my friends this time, saying, "You guys remember Matt?" Even if they hadn't really spoken to him, they did see him the night before. As the night went on, kind of hung around for a while, and it was fine because everyone was drunk, including him, and everyone was just having a good time. The next time I saw Matt was when he invited me golfing on a hot day. Honestly, I suck at golfing, but it's something I want to get better at, so when he invited me early one Sunday morning, I went. I think it was literally the following weekend after I saw him last. It was just him and I going. I tried to get a couple of my friends to go, but they were too hungover and said it was too early. Matt and I just vibed playing golf. I think it was only 9 holes. It took us like 2 hours. Afterwards we got food, and then I went home to relax before work the next day. I saw Matt one more time out after that, before he invited me on a hiking trip with him to Arizona. Honestly, Arizona and the Grand Canyon were always on my bucket list. I just checked the dates with work and confirmed I was able to go first. And I was an immediate yes. I asked Tyler and a couple of other friends to come with, but they were heavy numbers. They said they couldn't get the time off work and needed to save money. The typical responses from any of my friends when I try to get them on a trip. I asked Matt if any of his boys were going, and he said nah, he was going solo dolo. I actually hadn't met any of Matt's friends yet. His Instagram painted him as the super popular guy though, so I didn't find it weird. We flew out on August 15th, and our return flights to Chicago were August 18th. We landed at night. Matt rented a car for the weekend, and on the way to the Airbnb, we stopped for food and alcohol. By the time we got to the Airbnb, it was late. We had a couple of beers when we got there, and I could tell that Matt was down to stay up longer, but I was admittedly shot and wanted to go to sleep. This was when I realized there was only one bed in the Airbnb. I had never asked him to confirm that there were 2 bedrooms. I brought it up. He pointed to the couch I was sitting on and said it's a pull-out couch. He then said relax, and that he's not going to charge me for the Airbnb. Honestly, a free stay in Arizona, I couldn't complain about the couch. I pulled out the sofa bed, set up the sheets, and went to sleep. It was surprisingly comfortable. In the middle of the night, I woke up to Matt walking through the living room to the kitchen to get water. I'm a light sleeper. The sound of a pin drop will make me wake up. I rolled over and went back to sleep. The next morning, Matt woke me up early. It was a sunny, gorgeous day, and we drove straight to the Grand Canyon. I had no idea just how massive it truly was, or how many individual trail options there were. We hiked the Bright Angel, I think. I didn't realize how out of shape I was until that day. Matt was perfectly fine, laughing and telling me to keep up while I was dripping in sweat and out of breath. We took numerous breaks, which we used to take a million amazing pictures. It was beautiful. Eventually, we got back to the car. We had been hiking for over 2 to 3 hours, and I needed food. We stopped by a deli on the way back. It was a long drive back to Phoenix, and when we got there, we took a midday nap. And then after that, we explored around Phoenix. And of course, in Matt fashion, we drank at multiple bars. I barely knew the guy, but I could already see he liked his alcohol. Fast forward, we got really drunk. But I think I got drunker, and I'm not sure how, because Matt was downing as many drinks as me. We had to leave the rental on the street and Uber back to the Airbnb. It was late, time flew by somehow. I don't remember much besides Matt blasting music in the Airbnb for a bit, and my plugging my phone in next to the couch. I guess I just went to sleep after that. That night, I woke up randomly, probably a couple of hours after I fell asleep. My bladder was about to explode, and my mouth was drier than the Grand Canyon. I got off the couch and headed toward the bathroom, but I heard something. A crack in the floor, like a crack from pressure. I scanned around the dark room with my eyes and saw nothing, so I went to the bathroom. While I was in there midstream, I heard a door click and shut. It had to be Matt's bedroom door. When I finished peeing, I went to try Matt's door, but it was locked. I knocked on the door, but there was no answer. Whatever, I went back to the couch and fell back asleep pretty easily. The next morning, I woke up at like 8 a.m., head throbbing. The first thing I noticed was my phone. It was in a weird position. I had it charging last night and left it laying on the floor next to the couch bed, but now, it was sitting on the table next to the couch, and it was unplugged. I was questioning why I might have done this, but ultimately my answer was simple. I was just super drunk. That day we obviously didn't do any hiking, otherwise I would have puked. We just Ubered to the car and then did some driving around, exploring different neighborhoods, scenery, and checking out the botanical gardens. I didn't really want to drink that day, but later on Matt convinced me. And wouldn't you know it, it was another night of getting really drunk. Our flight was at like 1 p.m. the following day, so at least we didn't have to worry about getting up really early. We got back to the Airbnb late again, I'd say between 1 and 2 a.m. this time. Matt insisted on letting me sleep in the bed that night, just because it was fair. Honestly, I didn't argue. I eventually took my bag to his room, and then said goodnight, and shut the door. I didn't lock it. Not that it mattered. The locks, from what I remembered, had those doorknobs with locks that you could easily unlock with like a butter knife or something. I wish I could say the story ended there, and that we went home in peace the next day. Well, I woke up that night, probably not long after I fell asleep. I didn't know what woke me up at first. It's like waking up to a sound, but you didn't fully consciously hear that sound, because you were still technically asleep when it caused you to wake up. I looked around the room, and then for my phone. My phone was missing. I had it plugged in next to the bed, and had the phone on the bed next to me, but now the cord was just dangling from the outlet to the ground with no phone. How could this happen again? I looked on one side of the bed on the floor, and then the other, and I jumped up and screamed at the top of my lungs when I saw Matt laying face down, sprawled out on that side of the bed on the floor. He looked up looking like he'd just woken up from a deep sleep. I shouted, "What are you doing?" I looked around the room acting confused, like he didn't know how he got there. He stood up and said that he must have been so blacked out that he just walked in here to go to bed. but then remembered I was in the bed and he crashed on the floor. But that didn't make sense because he was on the side of the bed further from the door. I then accused him of taking my phone, and he played dumb. He said I should check under the bed, maybe it fell. Then he got on his knees, looked under the bed, and instantly said, "Bro, here it is." And he pulled it out from under the bed. I looked at him, and I genuinely felt like I was staring at a different person now. Who's this guy? Did he really try getting into my phone twice? I told him I'll just go back to the couch, but he insisted he would, and then he left the room. You bet your ass I locked the door this time. If it weren't for the phone, sure, I'd just see it as he was really drunk and did something goofy like come pass out on the floor, but I was detecting bullshit there. He took my phone and I know it. Since I was still kind of drunk, I didn't really have much trouble falling back asleep. Once again, I wish it ended there, but it didn't. I woke up one more time that night, and this time, I quickly realized why. At the foot of my bed was Matt standing there, but all I could really see was his silhouette. For some reason, I didn't jump or scream this time. He sat down on the bed and started rubbing my foot, and that's when I screamed at him to get out. He wouldn't move, so I had to physically push him off the bed and out the bedroom door. I started packing my clothes into my bag, and then quickly packed all my toiletries and whatever else I packed. He didn't say a word. He sat upright on the couch watching me like a creepy NPC the entire time. It was the most unsettling part. I called an Uber to the airport. I wasn't staying there another minute. He didn't try to stop me. I got to the airport just as the sun was starting to rise, and as hard as I tried to sleep, I couldn't. My mind was just racing. I waited there the entire time for the flight. I paid like $35 to change my seat, so I wouldn't be next to Matt. I looked out the window the entire time the plane was boarding, so I wouldn't have to make eye contact with him. I didn't tell any of my friends until later that day. I just needed time to process and digest everything. A couple of my friends said, "See, I told you he was weird." Pointed out that both times we ran into him, he was alone. It got me also thinking that the only reason he ran into me at the outdoor bar was because he saw my Instagram story and probably came there. Actual stalker behavior. I blocked his number and Instagram, but before doing so, I went to one of his older Instagram posts where he was with friends. No one was tagged in the picture, but I looked at the comments and there was one comment from a guy who looked like he was in the picture. I saw that Matt wasn't even following him, or vice versa. I took it upon myself to DM the guy, asking if he was still friends with Matt. The guy responded back within 10 minutes, saying this, "Nah, guy's a freak, run away." From there, he told me about his own experience along with the other guys who used to be friends with him, who all had to cut him off. The guy untagged himself for Matt's photo, but he said he can't forcibly get him to take down the picture. He wasn't surprised at all when I told him what had happened in Arizona. The guy's response was, "Guy should be in jail." It's crazy that I thought Matt was just a normal dude who was looking for a bro, but he ended up being a potentially dangerous predator. I still just want to know what he was trying to access on my phone. This happened last summer, around mid-July. I was home from college for a few weeks, and I was just trying to enjoy the break before my next semester started. My name's Kyle, and I live in Maryland. I had been talking with my two closest friends, Jason and Marcus, about doing something together. Just the three of us, like we used to back in high school. We all go to different colleges now, so it's rare that we get time like this. We ended up planning a weekend beach trip to Ocean City. Jason's family owns a small beach house there that they don't use much, and he got permission for us to stay there for a few days. It was nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom place a couple blocks off the sand, but it was perfect for what we needed. Just time to relax, party a bit, and catch up. We drove down on a Friday afternoon. The weather was hot, upper 80s, with that heavy humid air that sticks to your skin. It smelled like sunscreen and salt water the second we got into town. We spent the day walking the boardwalk, messing around in some of the arcades, and people watching. The beach was packed with tourists, kids running around with beach balls, families with umbrellas and coolers, and lifeguards constantly yelling at people to move out of the restricted areas. Everything felt normal. It was just a fun summer day. Later, we went back to the house, grilled burgers, had a few drinks, and started playing drinking games. By midnight, we were drunk and bored, and someone, maybe Marcus, suggested we go back to the beach. There's something weirdly appealing about being near the ocean at night. The beach is almost completely empty, the air cools down, and there's just something peaceful about it. We didn't bring much with us, just some hoodies in case we get cold, our phones, and a flashlight Jason grabbed from the kitchen drawer. We didn't plan to swim around or anything, just hang out and maybe walk along the shore. We headed down to Side Street and onto the wooden boardwalk, then took the steps down to the sand. As expected, it was basically completely deserted. The waves were steady, and the only light came from a few lamps on the boardwalk and the moon behind some clouds. There was barely enough visibility to make out where the water met the shore. We walked along the edge of the surf, occasionally letting the cold water hit our ankles. We joked around, talked about random stuff, and just killed time. After a while, we stopped near one of the lifeguard towers. Those wooden ones they take down at night, and we just laid in the sand looking up at the sky. That's when Jason noticed something. He suddenly sat up and said, "Is that someone walking over there?" We all sat up and looked in the direction he was pointing. At first I didn't see anything. It just looked like a dark blur near the shoreline. But then, yeah, I saw it. A figure. But it was just a silhouette at that point, walking slowly, right along the edge of where the water touched the sand, probably 50 or 60 yards away. We figured it was just another person out late like us, maybe just going for a walk. But then we noticed that their movement was off. They weren't strolling around like someone enjoying the beach. Their walk was stiff, slow, and almost mechanical. Their arms didn't swing naturally, and their posture was strange. Their head was tilted down, but not fully. It looked like they were staring at the sand, or maybe scanning it. We all stopped talking and just quietly watched them. Something about it put me on edge. I remember whispering, "What the hell are they doing?" Marcus suggested that maybe they're just looking for something. Jason joked that it was probably some drunk tourist who dropped their keys. We kinda laughed it off and went back to messing around, but I kept glancing at the person. A few minutes passed, and I noticed they had stopped moving. They weren't walking anymore. They were standing completely still now. And they were definitely closer, maybe 30 yards away. That's when I started feeling uncomfortable. We tried not to stare or shine our light at them, but it was getting hard to ignore. There was just something off about the entire thing. Marcus finally said, "They've been standing there for like 5 minutes. Who just stands like that?" Then Jason said something that made my stomach drop. He said, "He's not just standing, he's looking at you, Kyle." I didn't know if he was joking or not. I kinda laughed nervously and said, "Nah, he's looking at the sand." But Jason shook his head and said, "No, look closer. His head's tilted at you." That's when Jason pointed the flashlight at him. I didn't even want him to do that honestly, but he clicked it on and aimed the beam. The light hit the figure for just a second before the battery started dying, and it flickered out. But that second was enough. I saw him. He was almost grayish-white with no shirt. He was wearing wet jeans, clearly from the ocean. His arms hung completely limp at his sides. His head was tilted at a weird angle. Not broken, but unnatural. In his eyes were wide open, almost bulging. The second that beam of light hit him, he moved. Fast. Without any hesitation, he broke into a full sprint straight at us. I can't even describe how unnatural it looked. There was no build-up. He went from standing completely still to running at full speed, almost like he launched forward. All three of us screamed and bolted. We didn't even look back, we just ran. I could hear Marcus behind me, yelling go as our feet pounded into the sand. My lungs were burning. We ran all the way back to the steps leading up to the boardwalk and didn't stop until we got to the street. Only then did we turn around. But he wasn't there. The beach was empty. There were no footprints behind us, just the sound of waves. We stood there frozen, trying to make sense of it. We didn't talk much on the walk back to the house. When we got inside, we locked all the doors and windows, pulled the blinds shut, and stayed up until the sun came up. None of us could sleep. I kept expecting to hear knocking or see that pale face outside the window, but thankfully it never came. The next morning, we tried to laugh it off again. Say it was probably just some cracked-out homeless guy trying to scare people. But deep down, none of us believed that. The way he moved, the way he appeared out of nowhere, the lack of footprints, it made no sense. We stayed one more night, but we didn't leave the house. We left early the next morning. Over the next few weeks, we tried to move on. But then Jason texted me one night. He said he'd been having dreams. The same dream over and over. He'd wake up and see the guy standing in the corner of his room, soaking wet, head tilted, just staring at him. No movement, no talking, just standing. I told him that was messed up, but I didn't tell him that I was having the exact same dream. Everything was the same, the guy, the posture, just standing in my room, not moving and not talking. Sometimes I wake up thinking I hear the sound of wet footsteps in my hallway, but when I check, no one's there. Then, last week, almost a year later, I was scrolling through this local Facebook group that posts about stuff going on in Ocean City. Someone uploaded a photo they'd taken the night before from the beach. It was grainy and dark, but I recognized what they were talking about. They said, "Does anyone know who this creepy guy is that I saw standing by the water at like 1 a.m.? I clicked the photo. It was blurry, but I recognized him instantly. Same posture, same pale skin. He was just looking down at the water. The comments chilled me even more. There were dozens of people saying they'd seen him too. Some said he was there for hours. One person said they watched him walk into the water and never came back out. Another said they found wet footprints on their back porch 2 streets from the beach. No prints leading to or from them. I don't know what we saw that night, but I know this. I'll never go back to that beach at night again. I grew up in Massachusetts, and every summer since I could remember, I would spend the 3 months in a classic, coastal New England town. You know the type if you've been in that area of the country. I had a big group of friends who always did the same thing, and we would get up to all kinds of shenanigans every day after our respective jobs. I was 19 years old when this happened, like most of my friends, and I had just gotten off of a dock boy job I had. So like any other night, I texted my friends what the plan was, and picked up my friend, who I'll call Emerson, from his job to go get alcohol, as he was the one with a fake ID. We got the alcohol and went back to the small town where we lived. We decided to get on my family's boat that I was able to take out on my own to have some beers while we wait for everyone else to finish what they were doing. We drove around the little peninsula we were on to this place where a lot of people anchor and hang out. There were a couple of boats anchored already, and it was about 7 p.m., but it still wasn't unusual. Found a spot between the 2 boats, threw the anchor down, and just chilled and drank. We were having a nice time, listening to the music from the boat to our left, when the one to our right decided to leave. And then eventually the other boat's music shut off. We thought they were going to leave as well, so Emerson and I, in our new drunken state, began to groan and yell to turn the music back on and keep the party going and a bunch of other stupid stuff like that. But it didn't happen. We were sitting on the bow and started to drink again. Emerson said, "Dude, look." I turned around to look at the boat and saw 3 people standing on the edge just looking at us. My first reaction was to laugh because I was drunk, and then I turned back around, but Emerson kept staring at them. Now admittedly, I don't have a great sense of danger. I tend to be optimistic and lighthearted about most things, but Emerson was obviously uncomfortable. I told him not to worry about it, they were probably just trying to get a better look or something. But he kept looking with an uncomfortable look on his face, which I didn't get at the time. At this point, it's pretty dark, nothing illuminating the area but the lights from their boat, and therefore you couldn't really see who it was, just the silhouettes of these people. After a couple of minutes of trying to get Emerson to snap out of it, I turned back around and saw they were in the same position staring at us. I thought it was a joke, so I got the megaphone from the compartment over the steering wheel and said, "20 to watch, fellas," which pissed Emerson off because he sensed something wasn't right. I was putting it back when I heard one of them laugh, audibly a man, but something was off about it. It sounded almost sinister. It was slow and low, and it was kind of raspy. It was at that point that I started to feel uncomfortable. Emerson got up and said, "Let's get the hell out of here, bro, this ain't right." But I responded that it was fine. Right after that, we heard 2 splashes in the water from their direction. Saw that only one silhouette remained on the boat. That made Emerson immediately start pulling the anchor up as I was laughing at the situation and at him, which looking back now was unbelievably stupid. He tried telling me to turn the engine on while I was laughing my ass off watching him pull the anchor up as I was trying to drink my beer. In fact, I was laughing so much that I didn't notice the sound of the 2 people swimming near our boat. Emerson paused and looked at me with the anchor in his hands, which made me pause too. Couldn't see into the water, as it was dark and the lights were off with the boat. I called out hello and got nothing. Even the sound of the splashing water stopped. Right after that, I simultaneously heard Emerson yell, "Oh shit," and a sudden splash of water behind me, before I turned and saw someone trying to climb onto the back of our boat. I freaked the fuck out, and while turning the key, I saw a hand grab the railing on the side of our boat near Emerson, who was yelling and holding the anchor up, ready to fight. I finally turned the boat on and instinctively gunned it forward, smashing into the sandbar that was right in front of us. I put it in reverse and drove backwards as fast as possible until we were out of the little bay and back into more open water. I threw it back in neutral, and Emerson and I just looked at each other before he started giving me the "I told you so's" and "you're a dumbass." I fully agreed and said we should go back, at which he agreed. In hindsight, we should have hightailed it back to the boat docks near my house. But for some reason, we decided to pick up everything that was thrown around during our escape. We didn't even finish before I noticed in the direction we just came from, the lights of a boat approaching, and it was approaching fast. I said no F asterisk 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 ing way, and jumped back to the steering wheel and pushed full throttle. Our boat is old, so it doesn't go super fast, and even though I was full speed ahead, they were gaining on us. Emerson started to lose it, saying things like, "Who are these guys? What do they want? Why can't they just let us chill on the water?" So I told them to chill out and focused on going straight to the docks. After about 5 minutes, the docks were in sight, but the boat behind us was so close that we could see the bow itself going up and down with the waves. I honestly didn't know what to do. I banged a hard left and got as close to the shore as I could without beaching, and miraculously the other boat peeled off in the other direction. We breathed sighs of relief, but I still went full speed back to the docks. After docking and being relieved at the fact that there wasn't any damage to the boat, we met up with our friends after that and told them what had happened, and also came up with some theories, like maybe they wanted to rob us, or maybe they wanted to take the boat. We didn't recognize the boat, so they probably weren't from around here. I don't know. I don't like to think about what would have happened. I'm just glad we didn't find out. I do know that I'm thankful for Emerson being there. Without his skepticism, I think things definitely could have taken a turn for the worst.